literally got to 7 o'clock and I was like, oh, I need to start the live now. And then I was like, I have never actually done an Instagram live before, like on my own, and I didn't know how to start it, but we're here. And there are clearly some people, so I must have done something right. You see, you don't have to be that smart to go to Oxford. So I've been sent a load of questions. If I keep looking this way, it's because I've screenshot them and put them on my laptop so I can have a look at them as I'm chatting to you. So I'll just kind of get into them, because I think the main thing about this will be that I really want this to go on my feed so people can just go back to it afterwards. But I've not really looked at these questions because I just thought that it would be kind of nice to just give you my first impression, like feedback from them, just like you would get if I was able to chat to you on an open day, because it was such a shame that you couldn't have any like in-person open day question experiences. So I'll just get right into them. So question number 1, are tutorials intimidating? I would say probably your first one is, because you know it's generally an experience that you've never had before, and it is a teaching style that's very, very different to your A-levels and your GCSEs and those kind of things. And I think they're only really intimidating because you are expected to kind of have opinions and you're expected to engage with the topic, and that's not necessarily something that you're really taught to do at A-level. Or kind of in any other sense, like education-wise, before university. So I think it's perfectly normal to find your first tutorial really intimidating. But I actually really enjoy tutorials. They're actually a really, really nice way to engage with the subject. I always come out feeling like I've learnt loads. And I think it depends on the tutor as well. Like, I've got some really lovely tutors who I just genuinely look forward to my tutes with every single week. But then I have some tutors who are a little bit more harsh and who I think are probably can sometimes find their tutorials a bit intimidating, but I think that's just kind of with any human interaction basically. But really a tutorial is just a friendly conversation. What happens in tutorials? So I've kind of just covered this, is basically just a conversation about the topic. For law, we tend to have written an essay the week before, or really just up to the morning before the tutorial. Then we submit that, and then we discuss all of the reading that we've done for the previous week. So kind of it works a bit backwards. In Oxford, you teach yourself, and then you go to the tutorial to actually learn. And sometimes it's gone terribly wrong, but sometimes it's actually okay. Do you have to read out your essay and discuss them? So this really depends on your tutor. Some tutors haven't had time to look at your essay before the tutorial. Some of them will tell you to just bring it to the tutorial, so in that case you don't really discuss them. In that case you'll probably discuss some of the other subjects that you've covered that week that you didn't then write about in the essay, if that makes sense. Say you'll have a big long reading list with maybe 6 sections, and your essay might cover one of those sections, and so you'll discuss the other 5, if that kind of makes any sense. But some tutors do ask you to read your essay out in your tutorial. They're really not my favourite tutorials, but they aren't actually as bad as I thought they would be. So yeah. How do you deal with being homesick? I think just phoning my family, having home comforts at uni, having things like fairy lights and all these kind of things in my room. I really like that because it just makes it seem a little bit more homely. But also being kind to myself, and if I get to Thursday and I just don't want to be in Oxford anymore, I just book a train ticket home. I'm in a very fortunate position to be able to do that because obviously there's international students, but even sort of some people I know who can't do that will maybe just book a train ticket to London or something and just kind of spend a day out of Oxford doing whatever. Are the law tutors at Worcester friendly? What's the general vibe with the other students? The law tutors at Worcester are just I can't even praise them enough. They are super duper lovely. Yeah, and from just kind of all aspects as well, from a pastoral point of view, the tutors I can't thank enough for everything that they've done for me whilst I've been there. And what's the general vibe with the other students? Worcester students are just fantastic. Yeah, I've just got so many incredible friends around me, and they make the Oxford experience, I think, which is really cool. Are all topics within subjects compulsory, and instead of choose which topics you can sit or eliminate? Okay, so I think I'll just kind of go over the course structure. I think that would be a little bit more, like, that would probably answer the question. So basically, in order to get a qualifying law degree, you have to study like core subjects anyway. So whichever university you go to, in order for it to be a qualifying law degree, which means you can then go on to study the legal practice course to become a solicitor, or the bar training course to become a barrister. I think they might have actually changed the names of those, but I actually don't have a clue, which is really bad. But basically, in order to do those, you have to do certain subjects to make it a qualifying law degree. In Oxford, you do those subjects, but then you also do some additional ones, and some of them are like split in half. So for example, public law is a compulsory subject, but we don't do public law, we do administrative law and constitutional law, so we kind of divide that up. And then we also do Roman law, which is the law of the Romans, which is a pretty wild one, I will admit, but yeah, that's kind of how it works. So all of those are compulsory. So that means that we have to do Roman law, constitutional law, criminal law, tort law, contract law, trusts law, land law. I can't remember what I've said now. I think I've covered them all, but I've actually forgotten what I've already said, which is really terrible. The answers are on the Oxford website. But then in our final year, and jurisprudence, we have to do jurisprudence. Which isn't something you'd have to do at other universities. And then in our final year, we can pick 2 options. So I will be doing public international law and labour law, hopefully. It's not been confirmed, but I'm hoping that's what I get to do. So those ones you can pick. And also within jurisprudence, you pick a specialism, which is quite cool. So I'm doing unjust regimes as my specialism. So yeah, it's quite cool. And in terms of how those are assessed, it's all of them pretty much are with a 3-hour sit-down exam. But some of the modules that you can choose are assessed by take-home exam or courseworky stuff. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, and jurisprudence is half written exam and half extended essay, which is what I'm doing now. Public international law, just a question in the comments. Public international law is basically so I wanted to do human rights law, and then I was also kind of stuck with public international law because I really enjoyed public law. So if you don't know, public law is kind of the law around governments, and when you study things like public law, you'll look at issues like Brexit, and so there's a lot of politics in there, which is really quite cool. And in public international law, you also look at issues of human rights, and so rather than doing a human rights course, I decided to do public international law just because I'm quite interested in laws surrounding the government and treaties and that kind of thing. So yeah. Is it normal to feel that everyone else is better than you, and how do you help yourself with that? Yeah, that is super duper normal. That's so normal. I think everybody feels like that. I've certainly felt like that, and I think the best thing is just to talk to other people about it, because I feel like the good thing about being in the college system and living with people who are going through the same thing is that you truly are all in it together, which is really nice. I think just kind of having a chat with your friends about how you're feeling, and then they'll normally turn around and say, oh yeah, I feel like that as well. And there's just so much solidarity, because I'll say that to one of my friends and they'll say, oh no, I feel like that too, and I'm like, but I think you're so smart. So it's just kind of all swings and roundabouts. So how many 3-hour papers will you sit during finals? It really depends on how many subjects you do. So in your first year, you do 3 of your subjects. You do criminal law, constitutional law, and Roman law. And so you get those 3 out of the way in your first year. I think like most people I know end up doing about 9 3-hour exams in their final year, which sounds pretty scary, and that will be me next year. I'm not really looking forward to that, but I like people get through it every single year, so I'm sure I will too, hopefully. Flash forward to a year from now and I'm just not at all. Okay, so I've got quite a few questions about things like personal statements and Lnat and interviews. I have videos on all of those because I get questions about those all the time. And so I will just like, I would say I would link them in the description. This isn't a YouTube video, but you can find those videos on my YouTube channel. The link is in my bio, just because like I properly research those videos, and if I just kind of, I will basically be here all day if I kind of go through everything. But I'll just kind of go through some brief things that I'm not convinced that I do cover in those videos. In terms of how long I prepared for, I think I really started to do like maybe half an hour to an hour of Lnat prep a day for about a month, 6 weeks before my Lnat. And then in the week leading up to my Lnat, that's when I really kind of ramped it up and just really practiced. But I really wouldn't over prepare. I think it's more a case of kind of understanding. I think it's just a case of understanding structure and getting familiar with it. Also, this is a really good question. Why did you choose to go directly for law? You could have done something else first and then a law conversion course. Yeah, absolutely. So you can do that. And like so many people do it, especially it's very, very common from what I can see with like history students and English students, because those are all very transferable skills. The reason that I decided to do it this way, because I could have done an English and history degree, which was like my first kind of, that's what I originally thought I wanted to do at uni. So instead of doing that, I decided to go for a law course just because I really enjoy the subject. So I don't actually know in terms of like practice specifically what I want to do in law. I think maybe going down the public law barrister route, but like when I started uni, I had no clue whatsoever. I picked law just because I genuinely enjoy the subject, and I still really do. So like I want to go on and do a master's and maybe even further than that. So I think that you've just got to pick a subject that you can motivate yourself to study for 3 to 4 years of your life, because it's a big commitment, and I do know people who regret choosing law. And so I think that you've just got to kind of pick what's gonna kind of be good for you. So yeah, I think you've got to decide whether you want to become a lawyer or whether you want to study law, and those are kind of different things. Approximately how many hours a day do you study in term time and where? So in term time, it really varies. So I try and be very strict with myself. I try and like make sure that my working hours are 12 hours of the day. So I don't work for the full 12 hours, but like I'm not allowed to finish working more than 12 hours after I started, if that makes sense. And like in the middle of that, I'll go to a meeting, I'll have lunch and all these kind of things. So I'm not working for a solid 12 hours, but I make sure that I give myself like 12 hours to sleep and eat and everything. So it kind of varies. Normally, because I like to go to the gym first thing, I normally get back from the gym around 9:30. And so I start working then. And then I tend to have lunch around like 1-ish. Sometimes I'll have lectures, sometimes I won't. But then generally finish working at like 8 p.m, maybe 9 p.m. But like it'll be 9 p.m. only if I've taken breaks throughout the day. And I am very strict with myself about that. Sometimes do need to be a little bit more strict, but I am generally very strict with myself. And also like people do less work than that and are totally fine. It's just because like I'm very, very interested in the academic side, I think. And also I think like quite a lot of people in Oxford have this idea that I'm gonna fail if I don't if I don't kind of study that hard. But that's all coming from me. That's not coming from anything around me. And actually uni have really supported me to like make sure that I get into healthy working patterns, which has been really great. And why do I study? I study, so I try and I change where I'm studying at least 2 or 3 times a day. So the library, the law faculty, cafes. I love working in cafes. I really like white noise around me. And yeah, I just really like that. I try not to study in my room. If I do study in my room, I never ever work near my bed. And the kitchen. I like studying in the kitchen. So yeah, that's about it. How big is the workload in the law course? And does... Oh, okay, so I don't do the law with European law course, but I can give you like a general overview on this because I know people who do. No, I don't think that doing the law with European law means that you do a lot more work. There are definitely like extra classes for like extra language classes that you have to go to each week, but it's not like kind of taking on a whole other subject, if that makes sense. So it's not a joint honours degree, so it's not like you're doing something like English and German where half of your degree is the German. It's just kind of an additional year where you study abroad, you study law in a country that speaks that language. So I don't think it is loads more work, but it is definitely like a bit more work because you've got the language classes. And I'm always so in awe when we've got like a heavy essay week of sort of the people who do law with German law who like have to dash off and go to their German class, because I'm just like, wow. It's quite cool. But definitely if you're interested in doing the law with European law, oh no worries Julia, if you're interested in doing law with European law, then definitely apply, because even if you don't get chosen for that course, you still are considered for the straight law course. And like I do know people who've started on the law with European studies in law and then dropped down to just like the straight law course if they've kind of decided actually this isn't for me and this is a bit much. So I think if you fancy it, just apply and see where you get. One piece of advice I would give myself in first year, I think it would probably just be like everybody feels the same way, and also like I think just to actually speak to people about how I'm feeling. I had a pretty rough first term especially, and I think I kind of thought that if I went to my tutors about it, I would be seen as like just an annoying student who's already slipping behind and all this kind of thing, and that just wasn't the case. I ended up getting so much support, so I think if anything it would just be to try and seek out support a little bit sooner, because I think that would have been really good. And also speaking to some students in the older years as well. Like I definitely did this, but I think I could have probably made some more links with other students in the year above, just because I think they can really reassure you because they've been there as well. If you didn't pick Worcester, which college would you have picked? That's a really, really good question. So I can give you 2 answers, and one would be my answer like now as somebody who actually is in Oxford, and one is like as someone who was applying. So when I was applying, I was actually really torn between Worcester and Merton. I just kind of really liked Merton when I visited on an open day, but I decided that I really like the green spaces in Worcester, and so I picked the green spaces over the kind of more inner city college of Merton. Now, oh my goodness, I think maybe Mansfield. I love Mansfield College. It's such a friendly college, and it's super close to the law faculty as well, which is really convenient. Or Keble. Keble is just a really cool college. I stayed there last year when I was doing some access work in Oxford in the summer, and I just really liked it, and all the porters were really nice as well, which was cool. Do you do a lot of revision during the summer? To be perfectly honest, yes. So we have these things called collections, which are basically like mock exams, and we have those every single at the beginning of every term on the previous term's work. And so there is a fair amount of revision to do during any of the breaks. But our breaks are longer than most universities because we only have 3 8-week terms. Have you participated in a moot court competition? If so, which one would you recommend it? Yeah, so I've done a little bit of mooting, not that much to be perfectly honest, just because whenever I've signed up to be in a moot court competition, random things have come up and I've ended up having to cancel, or the moot competition's been cancelled or whatever. But everybody does a compulsory law moot in first year. And then there's things like the non-law moot, which are really quite nice because you pair up with a student who isn't a law student and you work together in a team to answer normally a criminal law problem question. I also organised a moot, so with Oxford Women in Law we organised a commercial law moot, which was really fun. So yeah, I think that mooting's a great thing to get involved in. I don't think I can really recommend any particular moot court competitions because there are so many just for any interest that you have. There's even Roman law moot court competitions, which I'm definitely steering clear of because Roman law was not my forte. But yeah, I've got some more questions. Hang on. Are collections take-home exams? No, you generally sit them in a room with the other law students, either in just one of the conference rooms or in the library or something. Although this term they were obviously take-home exams because we did them at home, although we had to time ourselves and send them in. How does the Oxford year look like? I understand terms are very short. Yeah, so terms are very short. So we have 3 terms. They've got funny names, don't be put off by them. So Michaelmas term, Hilary term and Trinity term. All of them are 8 weeks long, so there's 3 8-week terms. Yes, there's 3 8-week terms, and actually, no, that's wrong. So there's 3 8-week terms, but there's also this thing called North Week, which is sneaky because I didn't know it existed and I booked a holiday at Easter. No, not knowing they existed. So on the website it will say term starts on this date, but actually you will normally move in a week before that in what's called North Week, and that's when your collections will be. But you shouldn't have any tutorials apart from if your tutor kind of organises something a bit weird, and there aren't any lectures. So yeah, and then sometimes people will have to stay at the end of term in 9th and 10th week if they have exams, but I only had to do that when I did my law moderations. So yeah, that's kind of how that looks, but in general 3 8-week terms. How are the tutorials at Worcester, and do you use the law library a lot? Yeah, so I kind of have access to 2 law libraries. I have access to the main faculty law library, which all law students can go to, and then Worcester College itself also has a law library. I use both of them a lot because that's where all of the texts are, although most stuff I can get online. But they're also just nice, quiet places to work, and yeah, I quite like them. How are the tutorials at Worcester? I love Worcester tutorials. I've not had a bad Worcester tutorial experience. All of the Worcester tutors, as I've already said, are just super duper friendly, and I really enjoy them. I always feel like I'm being stretched in a really good way. I always come out feeling like I understand everything so much more, I've been pushed. I think that you can really come out of tutorial feeling very proud of yourself, which is really nice. Which societies would you recommend? Wow, there's societies for everything, so I really don't think I can recommend any particular societies because, quite frankly, it will just depend on your interests. But obviously I'm going to push Oxford Women in Law because I'm the president of that at the moment and I love it. the Oxford University Dance Society is something else that I've been involved in, like just going to their classes, and I really like that. Yeah, there's just loads, honestly. Just kind of go to whatever is going to relax you and give you a bit of a break from your degree. For law specifically, do you have to apply for lots of open days or insight days throughout? I'm probably not the best person to answer this, because that's generally, like, open days and insight days are generally something that like commercial solicitors, law firms do. And that's not an area I'm interested in. I know, like, I think it's just really down to personal preference. I know some people who applied to kind of every open day they could get their hands on, and some people who didn't, maybe applied to one and then have applied for some vacation schemes. So it's really up to you, basically. And there's plenty of opportunities like within Oxford to chat to people from firms. Do you do all your tutorials at Worcester, or do you have to go to some other colleges? Great question. I don't do them all in Worcester, no. So Worcester's quite nice in that the majority of our tutorials are in Worcester, because we have a fair amount of law tutors, all with different specialisms. But for land law, trusts law and contracts law, I went to Brasenose College. So yeah, but that was, those are the only three, I'm pretty sure. Oh, actually, I had one criminal law tutorial that was at Corpus Christi. It was a bit rogue, but okay. I also had a question about whether Worcester was a competitive college. I'm assuming it means like to get in. It's really important to note that you shouldn't be at any advantage or disadvantage when you're applying, like if you decide to apply to a college that gets more applications. So I think Worcester is the most applied to college, or at least it has been for the past couple of years. But that shouldn't put you off applying, just because the way that they look at applications is to make sure that the best applicants overall get in. So you might be like sent to another college. Like I know people who applied to Worcester and ended up at like St Benet's Hall or Mansfield, or just kind of other colleges. So don't worry about that too much, because you'll still like get in if you're kind of what they're looking for. This one made me laugh. So this one is, why should I choose Worcester? And to be perfectly honest, you shouldn't just choose Worcester. There's no kind of one college that's the best for everybody. Like Worcester might not be your perfect match. But I can tell you why I chose Worcester. I chose Worcester, and if I was kind of choosing my college again, I would still choose Worcester. Because first of all, it's got loads of big green spaces. That was something that I just really liked. I'm not from a city, I'm from quite a rural area near Sheffield, and so the idea of kind of being right in a city centre, which to people from like London, Oxford just seems like a little village, but for me it seems pretty big and busy, and so it was quite nice to just be like one step out of the city. And also kitchens. Worcester, I think it's like 70% of rooms have kitchens, and that was something that was quite important to me because I really enjoy cooking. And because a lot of the colleges are super old, they don't have they can't fit kitchens in them, and so some of them don't have them. Also, Worcester provides accommodation for all 3 years of your course, which it's not the end of the world if your college doesn't at all. In fact, some people want to kind of move out of college, but for me that was just like financially and just logistically easier, because I'm quite lazy. Did you find it hard to socialise during Freshers Week, and are there people who don't? Yeah, I really did actually. So Freshers Week has now changed for law at Worcester, which is really nice. But when I was there, basically the second day, they gave us a reading list and were like, right, you've got 2 essays due in like under a week. And I just freaked out. And so from that point on, I just didn't really enjoy Freshers Week, which was a real shame, because I wish, like in hindsight, I'd kind of realised that the tutors were just trying to like snap us out of Freshers Week mode, and that actually I could go out and socialise a bit more. But the fact that I didn't socialise that much during Freshers Week after those first couple of days, I don't think was actually that detrimental. Like, I have just got the most amazing friends, and I wouldn't change them for the world. And yeah, I can't, I don't think that it's really detrimental if Freshers Week ends up not being the best week of your life, because I think it's okay to have a pretty crappy Freshers Week. It doesn't like mean anything, so yeah. But equally, like, Freshers Week can be absolutely brilliant, and this year as a second year I loved Freshers Week. So what do Oxford look for in applicants? So I'm not a I meant to answer the question that's just popped up. How has Freshers Week changed now? As far as I'm aware, for this year's like law intake at Worcester, they didn't give them like super tight deadlines, and they could enjoy Freshers Week. Basically, they said that they had one essay due in a week's time, which is like a much lower burden. So yeah. What do Oxford look for in applicants? Yeah, so I am not an admissions tutor. I can only kind of go based on what I've heard from admissions tutors, but it's just someone who's genuinely interested in their subject. They want to engage, and in terms of the interview, they're looking to see whether you would suit the tutorial environment. So are you kind of willing to be pushed? Are you willing to change your thinking and change your answers depending on information that's been given to you? Yeah, there's just kind of a real willingness to engage in the subject, and I think that's kind of how the interview system is all really tailored. Are there mature students at Worcester? Is it more difficult to fit in if you're older than 21? There are mature students in Worcester. Like, I'm 20, so like I can't really answer this, but in my experience, it's kind of weird because going to university is so different to going to school. There are so many people that I actually didn't realise were 2-3 years older than me in my year, who'd taken like a gap year, or who'd kind of started doing another degree and then come to Worcester and studied whatever they were now studying. And you just don't notice, like, everyone's just an adult, everyone's just a student. And so I really don't think that it would be too difficult. But if you are particularly worried about being a mature student, then there's a college called Harris Manchester, which is just for mature students. So that might be something to consider. But equally, like, I would really hope that you would still feel welcome and part of a community in Worcester, or just any college. I study law, for the person that's asking. Where do you eat your lunch or dinner at uni? So there's a hall, so we have a big dining hall, and that serves 3 meals a day. There's also a cafe in college, but to be honest, it's quite rare that I eat there, not for any particular reason, it's quite rare that I eat there. I tend to cook, so I tend to cook in my kitchen. Sometimes for lunch I will just like have it in a cafe or something, which I always really enjoy, because that's normally where I'm studying. So yeah, that's about it. 17. Oh, so I actually know somebody who's 17 when they started in Oxford. I really don't think it will be a problem in a social way at all. Again, it's kind of the same as with mature students. Like, everyone's there, everyone's a student, everyone's got the same experiences. Yeah, I think the only thing is like drinking, but in my experience, like, so I don't drink. I'm obviously like old enough to drink, but I don't. And in my experience, like, not drinking really hasn't been a problem. I've never felt any kind of pressure to, or I've never felt left out. So I think that would be the only difference between like you and an 18-year-old, but I don't think it would be a massive issue. I'm speaking so quickly, I'm actually running out of breath. Do your tutors at your college teach you all of your subjects, even if it's not their subject? So no, I've kind of addressed this. Like, if you don't have a tutor that is a specialist in that field, then you go to another college, and that happens all the time. Okay, so this is actually super interesting. So question, undergraduate students, are there any good job opportunities in the town? So in Oxford as a student, you generally can't work during term time, and that's kind of for a whole bunch of reasons, but mostly you really just don't have time. Because you're only there for 8 weeks, those 8 weeks are super packed, and your tutors really wouldn't kind of be very happy if you said, oh, I can't come to this tutorial because I've got a shift. So the whole kind of the way people get around that is that you work in the holidays. You do work for the university, so most of my income comes from doing access work for the university, which I absolutely love and would do it if it was a voluntary position. So it's a great thing that I get paid for it. And yeah, just like doing bits around your work. But yeah, that's a really good point. You can't, for example, you couldn't just become like a waitress in a cafe, which is what I do when I'm at home. Because that just doesn't work. I actually never know. So some people have said it's completely against Oxford rules and you could get kicked out if you get a job. I don't think that's true. Like, I don't know if it actually says anywhere you cannot get a job, but it's just sort of you can't get a job. But there are also like loads of financial assistance schemes which you wouldn't get at the universities, which can help to compensate that as well. Are all libraries in Oxford open? Not at the moment, so unless they might be now, I'm not sure. They closed all the libraries due to coronavirus, but the library staff have just been absolutely fantastic. They scanned so much. They contacted publishers and got online books and everything, and so yeah, that was fantastic. How many books do you have to read for an essay? That's a really, really good question, and it really depends on the week. So for me, most of my reading list will be made up of cases for basically all my subjects. So some weeks I'll have like 15 cases, and some weeks I'll have 35 cases, and a case can be anything between like 5 pages and 150 pages. So it's totally like all over the place. And then have things like articles normally around the like 20-page mark. Some are less, some are more, and so yeah, so I'll maybe have like 4 of those. So it's quite a lot of reading. However, you do learn to be selective, so you do kind of, the first week you definitely like flounder around and you don't know what you're doing, but after that you do kind of get more into it, and you start to understand what you can skim. It's a really, like, I think that's something that my degree has just been amazing for, because I've learned to condense huge amounts of text really, really quickly. Are there any opportunities to get involved in pro bono work at Oxford? Yes, there are. So the main way to do it is through something called Oxford Legal Assistance, which I was a part of last year, being in my second year, which I've just finished. And it's for second year law students, and you apply and have an interview and everything, and then are selected. And it's for a law firm called Turpin and Miller, who do a lot of legal aid cases. So legal aid is basically like legal advice and representation that's funded by the government. So my role was basically, I would interview asylum seekers and refugees, and get all of their initial data from them, find out like their timeline, and then pass that on to the solicitors so that they could build a legal case. Or I would do things like country research. So I would be told, okay, we've got this client from this country and they are a victim of domestic abuse or something like this, and then I would then research the treatment or protection for domestic abuse victims in X, Y, and Z countries, to kind of help to build that legal case. So it was a really interesting role. It was really hard because I was speaking to a lot of people who had very, very traumatic experiences, but it was so beneficial, and it's been like the best opportunity that I've had during my law degree, because it actually felt as though I was doing what I could to make a difference, and it was good. Like it was a good experience, and I have a lot of respect for the lawyers who work on those cases, and even more respect for the people who are going through that process, because it takes an awful lot of just courage. And yeah, I mean, the people going through that process are amazing, and I just admire basically every single person that I spoke to. Look, for the longer cases, do you still read them all or skim through them? It really depends. So if it's a case that's really important, you read everything, because you need to know like exactly where any conflicts are, and just everything. So like some cases, even if they're 100 pages long, you will read all 100 pages in like pretty good detail and make good notes on it, because it's a really important case. And you'll know whether it's an important case based on like whether it's been particularly mentioned in a textbook, or whether your tutor has put a little star next to it, which means this is an important case, like read it. And then if a case isn't really mentioned anywhere and your tutor hasn't drawn attention to it, generally you don't need to kind of read everything in a lot of detail. You'll just skim read it, or kind of use something like a text and cases book. I'm just going to see if I've got one to hand to show what I mean. Oh, I don't actually. Basically, a text and cases book. No, I've not got one. A text and cases book is it kind of has an outline of the facts of the case, and then it has like key bits of the judgment, and they're really useful for when a case isn't actually as important, but you need to know kind of a little bit about it. So they're quite good. Is the workload manageable if you're planning right? Yeah, absolutely, I think so. I mean, to be fair, I've had some terms where the workload has been pretty horrific, I'm not gonna lie, but that wasn't like, I think that was generally when I had other stuff going on in term as well. I think the heaviest workload I've had was this term just gone, which was the term obviously where none of us were in Oxford because of the pandemic. And that was a really tough term, but I think that was a really tough term because I had 2 full modules, and I also had like just everything that comes with not living at home and not being at uni, and it was just a difficult term. So in that term the workload was pretty tough, but in general the workload is very much manageable. Even in kind of the hellish term that I had this summer, the workload was still manageable. You just got to plan out your time, set yourself deadlines, and most importantly, like make time for yourself. You've got to make sure that you're eating right, you've got to make sure that you're sleeping, because if you don't do those things then you're not going to work effectively anyway, so there's no point. But yeah, I hope that's kind of put you at ease. Like I know that there are so many stereotypes and kind of myths that Oxford students just like work non-stop, and it's not true. Like we are also human. We go out and party and just like cook with friends, and yeah, just do fun stuff and sleep and eat, because they're really important, and exercise. So yeah, it's definitely manageable. People do so many things alongside their degrees, which is really quite admirable. But yeah. How is Worcester's accommodation? Is it beautiful? I think so. Yeah, I really like Worcester's accommodation. Worcester's accommodation is like very, very varied. So in my first year, I stayed in a medieval cottage, which is pretty cool. It was very cold, but it was really cool. I stayed in a medieval cottage, which was really pretty. And then last year I stayed in a building that actually from the outside just didn't look very exciting. The inside was fantastic. The rooms were super big. We've got like really nice big en-suites, and the kitchens were really good. They got loads of appliances and stuff. So there's a really big range of accommodation in Worcester, which is quite nice, because I think some of the kind of older, more traditional colleges, you've kind of got one type of accommodation. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up there, just because all the other questions, I think if I try and answer them, I'll just be here all night. And also because the answers to them are generally on videos on my YouTube channel. So hopefully you'll be able to find all the answers there. Things like the Lnat, personal statements, interviews, those kind of things. I have specific videos on all of them on my YouTube channel, which is Elle the Law Student, and same as my Instagram. So if you're kind of interested in those things, then I would definitely have a look on there, because I don't want to miss anything out, and I think that those videos will be more useful than me just babbling on forever. Okay, I think that's about it. If you do have any more questions, just like quickly pop them in the chat. But other than that, it's been really, really nice to chat to you today. I'm sorry I'm just like babbling so much. I always do this when I'm doing like any kind of live stream or whatever. I enjoy talking about access and Oxford, and I'm just super passionate about getting people to apply for law, and to not kind of set limits on themselves. So that's why I end up talking so much that I make myself out of breath. Did you go to a grammar school or senior school? Oh, no, I didn't go to a grammar school. So I didn't actually know grammar schools still existed really until I started to apply to uni, which is a bit weird, I know. But where I'm from, like in the north, there just aren't really grammar schools. I think there might be some, but like it's not a common thing at all. I just went to a non-selective comprehensive school, which wasn't the best school, but it was not the worst school. It wasn't like, I was the only person in my year to go to Oxford or Cambridge, so it's not like I came from a school where, you know, you have some state schools that send like 50 people to Oxford and Cambridge a year, which is absolutely insane and like incredible. But yeah, I didn't go to a school like that. And no, I didn't go to a grammar school. I went to a comprehensive, just your bog standard comp down the road. But I'm in Oxford and I'm keeping up with everyone, and I'm enjoying it, and I do feel like I fit in. What did you put as your other Ucas options for law? Great question. So I put Bristol as my insurance choice. I got a Bristol do like contextual offers. So I put Bristol because I love Bristol itself, but they gave me an offer of I think it was AAB rather than A-star AA, which is their standard offer, because they like look at postcodes and the school you go to and like what the progression to university is like and everything, and based on that they lowered my the entry requirements, which I thought was just really good. I think that that's something that universities should do more of, because I always feel like if you go to like an absolutely fantastic school and you've had so many opportunities, then getting 3 A's isn't as difficult as it is if you're going to a school like a failing school and you've really not had much support. So I think that it's really great when when universities do like contextual offers. I think that's really good. Sorry, that was a complete tangent. Other than that, it was Durham. I applied to Durham. I love Durham as well. It's just a really, really lovely place and it has a great reputation. And then I also applied to Liverpool, so University of Liverpool. Again, I just love Liverpool as a city. It's really nice. And also Southampton. Southampton was the only one that I didn't actually visit. I just kind of liked the sound of it, and they did like reduced entry requirements if you did an EPQ. So that was a big plus, because I did an EPQ at A level. Oh, I'm so glad you're going to study law. I'm glad I've not put you off. I think that's my biggest fear. Like, what if people watch these videos and actually they decide not to study law or go to Oxford based on something I've said? Because I wouldn't ever want somebody who was genuinely passionate about studying those subjects or like had the potential to go to Oxford to be put off, because you can do it. Okay, fantastic. I don't think I've got any more questions, but thank you so much for tuning in. I thought I was just going to be talking to myself for 45 minutes. Oh, is it hard to keep up with Oxford reading list? Kind of similar to what I've said before. So long as you plan your time, know it's fine. And if you don't read everything on the reading list, it's not a big deal. You just kind of catch up in the holidays. So yeah, don't worry too much about that at all. Yeah. Okie dokie. Thank you again so much for coming, and you can always just drop me a message on Instagram or just a comment on my YouTube channel, and I will get back to you if you have any kind of questions about anything really. I'm more than happy to chat to you, because I know that the kind of application process and everything can seem super isolating, so I'm always here. Please feel free to just drop me a DM, and I really hope you found this super useful, even if I've been babbling on now for about an hour. So yeah, I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye.